plan of 8,000 megawatt installation. Adani Renewable and Adani Green, they have already won the bids from SECI and NTPC and NHPC for around 8,000 megawatts. Yesterday only I approved this whole plan in my Renewable Energy Corporation board meeting. But now the problem which they are facing is the international ramifications of the COVID crisis which we are seeing, because most of the raw material, particularly the panels and other things, are being coming from China for a very long time. So their whole timeline and implementation plan and COD deadlines are getting missed. So how that is going to be handled? Because if this international supply chain is getting impacted for a period of another 1 year or so, then the whole scenario of targets being fixed by the government of India and by the state governments would take a severe hit. So that also needs to be looked into, because it would be requiring the intervention of the government of India. So maybe more focus on the domestic production, but will we be able to scale up our domestic production of the panels and other components required in renewable sector to that extent or not? So that is another big challenge being faced by the investors which are coming to the state of Rajasthan for making big investments in the renewable sector. And there are a few other things. I think it will be better if we take them in the question answer session.
Sure. Sir, thanks for highlighting the challenges due to the COVID-19 situation. One is the challenge of the revenue, which all the DISCOMs are facing. And the second issue you mentioned about the renewable energy investments, which have been committed by the investors like SoftBank, Adani, and how to get that executed. So these are very important challenges, as you mentioned. May I request Mr. Sunil Chauhan to please talk about challenges which you are seeing because of the COVID-19 situation.
Thank you. First of all, I am thankful to ELECT for calling me for this summit. Basically, I am heading a region which is a predominantly agrarian region. I am a joint managing director Mahavitran for Aurangabad. I am looking after 8 districts. When you see at my consumer base, roughly I have 37 lakh consumers, out of which 30% are agrarian consumers. And as sir has rightly said, major issue in this COVID scenario is a recovery of dues, because this agrarian means farmers, they have stopped paying. And as such, when you look at my capacity, basically Maharashtra is self-reliant in electricity, but my demand, when you see the demand in February, it was around 22,000 megawatt. In May, it has dropped down up to 17,800. Means electricity demand has been stepped down. Recovery position is pathetic. Secondly, I used to get more recovery. My 60% revenue comes from HT consumers, basically industrial consumers. But in this COVID scenario, many industries, they have stopped working. But now, after this Honorable Prime Minister's video conference, we are convincing the industrialists, and we are in following proper COVID protocol. If the industries will start working, certainly my revenue will go up. As such, if we see the challenge of recovery, I will just quote one example. Every month I used to collect 600 crores for Aurangabad region, and my recovery has been dropped down up to 228 crores, roughly 50%, and it will again further drop down. So recovery is a major challenge. Secondly, agrarian these farmers. So now what we did, now we are going ahead with HVDS, high voltage distribution system. We are giving guarantee to farmers for supply, continuous supply, uninterrupted supply. We are convincing them, we are sensitizing them. So my recovery position will go up. But in this COVID scenario, residential consumption has been gone up in spite of all digital tools for paying the electricity dues, everything online, but people are not using, because income scenario or income level of all the consumers has been dropped down. Sir has rightly said, it will take some time, and it will require some impetus from government, either from state government or central government, to strengthen the economy. Then and then these companies, they will stand in a big way.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the inputs. You again highlighted the challenges. May I request Kelly to please talk about your views on this situation? Kelly?
Yes, I have a small presentation with me. I don't know if I share that now. That supports, or you want that I just.
I think like if you speak in like at this moment, it will be a good idea. It may help. Yeah.
So
Without
without presentation, huh?
yeah.
Yeah. So I'm representing 3E. 3E is a consultancy and software company in renewable energy. And we have a branch in India, in Chennai and Hyderabad. So we are private limited. And we have a full Indian team. And we are actually in consultancy of renewable energy. So in the full project life cycle of solar and wind parks. And of course, we also observe some delay there because we cannot go on the field and so on. But in our other angle, so we are in software, and that software is monitoring the performance of solar parks. And in that field, we actually see that the demand is going up because with this, we actually guide the companies in a digitalization journey. And I think with this COVID, companies are even more aware than before that digitalization makes sense. So what we're doing, for example, for a customer like Renew Power, I think you will know them. So we have their entire solar and wind assets are connected to our platform, and that means that we get data from the performance of the solar and the wind park. And out of those data, we have advanced algorithms, and we can see which part of the plant would not be performing well. And based on that, remotely, we can do analysis and can see what the situation is. And only in when there is a huge alarm, then we have to send people on site. But we can remotely control the performance of a solar park. And I think in this era of COVID and post-COVID, digitalization is very important. And I think for India, we can take big steps forward. So that is what we observe, as well in Europe as in India.
Sure. Kelly, thanks for highlighting the importance of digital and digitalization in this situation, which may increase efficiency and which may help in reducing some of the costs in these challenging times. So I will move to Ajitab sir again and ask you about that. You have talked about in the challenges, the financial challenges, the investor challenges, and will you like to elaborate on like some of the issues which you have raised in your initial remarks and give more details on the various aspects of the challenges and possible solutions?
So, like you spoke about the technology and technical issues, like Kelly was also very rightly mentioning, and as it was raised by the other participants also. So, the point is that now this issue of smart metering, like it was mentioned that it has become very difficult to go to the houses and to the commercial places and do the billing thing. And though the state regulatory commission, at least in Rajasthan, has come out with a regulation where it has been said that the average of last 3 months of billing can be made. But even then, it has become very difficult, particularly for the high-end consumers, because we have come out with a solution that you click on your own the picture of the meter reading and then email it to us or WhatsApp it to us, and then we'll raise the bill accordingly and feed the information into our revenue monitoring system. But I think the COVID has taught us that it is high time to go extensively for smart metering for all category of consumers, even for the agriculture consumers, because like currently, I should not be saying, but I am being very frank, in some areas, particularly in the agriculture sector, the theft of electricity has increased in this period, and it has become very difficult to monitor and enforce the regulations because some of our ground staff, though the technical personnel and the ground staff of the distribution companies is working wholeheartedly, but even then there is a kind of fear and a scare when you read a lot about the corona disease in the newspapers and when you keep on hearing. So initially we faced a lot of inertia from our ground staff, but subsequently we provided them with the protective equipment and we taught them and we gave them the standard operating protocol that this is how you have to go to the field and to the residences and you have to convince the house owners and or the consumer. So, but that has become a very difficult task. So we are not even able to do the proper billing for this period, even if the bills are referred. But otherwise, because then subsequently after 2-3 months, it will create a lot of complications when we raise the bill and force the consumers to pay the bill amount. So we should be aggressively going for smart metering. That is point number A. Point number two is that like there are certain issues because of the COVID scenario, which is currently prevailing in the country. The projection of demand has become very difficult for the state load dispatch centers or the state power utilities, particularly the DISCOMs, which have to project the demand. They have to send this demand to the Urja Vikas Nigam in our state, and then it goes to the load dispatch center. So, in the current scenario, the projection thing or the forecasting thing is very difficult. So, it is raising issues regarding deviation settlement mechanism. So, now in coming 2-3 months, the deviation range would also vary quite a lot. So, which subsequently imposes penalties on the state utilities for not forecasting the demand accordingly to ease out the dispatch at different levels, the state level, the regional level, and maybe at the national level also. So I think the state regulator will have to think about that also, about the deviation settlement mechanism. They will have to tweak their regulation a little bit. Another thing is like as far as the renewable sector is concerned, so our policy now, the state policy talks about different kind of technologies and we have given different kind of incentives. So we are promoting technology like for EV charging stations, just to illustrate a thing. So we have come out with a kind of relaxation that for the first 100 electric vehicle charging stations, which are based on renewable energy, mostly on the solar power. So like if a investor is eager to place his solar panels in Jaisalmer, that is the border area which borders to the Pakistan, and is wanting to use that power generated like in a city like in Jaipur or Udaipur. So then we have 100% exempted the wheeling charges, the carrying charges. We have allowed 100% banking of energy, and we have reduced the banking charges also, and we have exempted that land from the conversion charges, and government will be allotting the land at 50% of the charges. So we have come out with a good kind of package for people who are wanting to come with different kind of or innovative technologies. Further, we have allowed the hybrid policy also, the storage policy also. So there also we have given, say like if someone is wanting to come with RTC, the round the clock power proposal, like Greenco itself, we are examining that proposal. The sponsor of this conference today, Greenco, we have already held a meeting, and their proposal is under consideration. Like they are working on pumped hydro storage thing perhaps, and so we are promoting such kind of new technologies both in the renewable sector and in the conventional sector. There are a lot of technology interventions. Like Kelly was also rightly mentioning that now we should be controlling everything sitting in a room or in a war room, like as regard to the dispatch and forecasting and scheduling and metering and revenue realization, or maybe the future of time of day tariff, which the MOP is also wanting to impose, and there are other lot of things, the power markets which would be coming. For that also we would be requiring a lot of IT. So I think all of these states are making interventions at one or few places, and MOP is the right forum. The meeting which is held in Delhi, there are detailed discussions and good practices are also being shared. But even then, the major problem in these technology-related positive interventions is that again, a lot of resources are required, financial resources, and we are able to take projects on pilot basis. But ultimately, when you start scaling them up, and as per my experience of few years in the power sector, so one major issue with the power sector is that unless you scale up your technology related interventions, your initiatives do not muster much progress. So ultimately, you have to cover almost everything. Like if you talk about smart metering, then you have to talk about complete coverage. You have to go to the distribution transformer level. Ultimately, you have to cover the smart metering at each voltage level so that you are able to detect the losses also and accordingly fine tune your interventions and take your commercial decisions. Likewise is for the SCADA thing, for maintenance of your transmission grids or distribution network, and like these lot of things are going on, but financial resources are a big constraint. We are looking for even for international lending also, like ADB and German grant also. So I think we'll be able to take ahead few initiatives which have been successfully taken up in a lot of states, particularly in few of the southern states of the country.
Great. Thank you, Ajdabji, for highlighting the importance of digital. And as you mentioned that now is a situation when we have to work as a war room, make dashboards for each of the processes, and actually monitor efficiency in everything, so that we deal with this unprecedented crisis in a more managed way, a more systematic way. May I request Mr. Sunil Chawanji to talk about digital IT, and do you see like how do you see the role in this situation?
First of all, I thank Mr. Ajitab sir. He has rightly said digital initiative is the only tool to sustain the power sector. Sir, in Maharashtra we have started because in AG sector theft of electricity is a major problem. Lot of hawking, everything is happening in AG sector. So what we did during this COVID period, following all protocol in green zone and in orange zone, we have started mapping up AG assets, because right now what is happening, it is started from substation to feeder, then feeder to DTC to consumer. Roughly 20% work has been done. Basically, we want to do the energy auditing, how much energy we are putting in AG sector and how much billing is done and what is the deficit. This initiative we have started definitely with all the COVID protocol, with following all the COVID protocol. We have sensitized our staff. It is an app-based survey. It has been started. And sir has rightly said smart metering is the only tool, because right now we are facing COVID-19 scenario. We don't know what will happen tomorrow or days to come. Certainly, human intervention for taking the meter reading, it should be reduced. In Maharashtra, in my region, we are going ahead with AMR meters, automatic meter reading we are taking up. Then we are using MRIs. But many instances we are putting up the outsource agencies for taking the meter reading, and they are coming with many difficulties. Sometimes they used to say there is a door lock. Sometimes they used to say meter is not readable. So in this scenario, smart metering is the only alternative for correct billing. Secondly, putting good dashboards, sensitizing the citizens. This is one of the media. And then I must congratulate Kelly. She has touched the issue of renewable energy, because in my region we are going ahead with a big way. In Aurangabad region, right now my solar generation is up to 50 megawatt, and my CM is coming ahead with a solarization of AG feeders. Means what we are doing, we are sensitizing the gram panchayats and private persons for giving land for solar farms. For this purpose, what we did, we are giving roughly 30,000 rupees per acre per year as a lease rent. This has been just started. We are convincing the citizens and putting more solar energy in AG sector. By doing this, it has been decided by my government to give daytime energy to the agriculturists. So this will again reduce some of the hawking problems. Secondly, in my earlier session, I have already said HVDS is another one more tool. This will reduce the theft in agriculture sector, because my recovery in HVDS, high voltage distribution system, it is roughly 90%. Whereas earlier in conventional system, where it was earlier with on HP basis and then it started with meter, there the recovery is very less. So certainly with smart metering, secondly, MERC has come up with new tariff, because from April 2020, Maharashtra Electricity Regulation Company, they have come up with a very good user-friendly tariff structure, and they have given a guarantee that this tariff will be the same for next 5 years. So with these initiatives and sensitization of citizens at large, certainly this sector can be put in a better way.
Great. Thank you, Sunilji, for highlighting this IT part, and also the mentioning of that. What are your initiative in the renewable energy sector? Kelly, I have a question specifically that while the energy departments and the discoms are having a totally difficult financial situation because of the COVID-19, the revenues have fallen. So, and but if they have to deploy IT, like they have to again do investments, which are scarce. So how do they handle this catch 22 situation? Your opinion on this?
Yeah. Well, first of all, I want to express that the issues that are discussed, okay, you want to go to smart metering, you want to go into digitalization. And the positive thing is that all that technology is there. You know, there are solutions for these problems. Okay, there is an issue of money, but always what for now is going on. For example, there is also a partnership between Europe and India that is focusing on renewable energy. And for example, in Telangana state, we will support there a project where we will work with the grid operators on making the grid smarter and working with demand response. So we will work there together, or this is under discussion with Mr. Ajay Mishra and Mr. Janaye, to actually look into Telangana, where can we produce more renewable energy and create energy islands that, like for example, High City gets energy independent, and that the grid, is less demand from the grid, that the production is there by small units, and that the grid can get operated smarter. And this is something that we would want to showcase as a pilot, where you can make grids smarter, and where you can make kind of power islands where we indeed work with more renewable energy, and that the companies learn to produce their own energy, that the grid is less affected, but that the grid can also better forecast and so on, by monitoring all inputs and outputs. And the good thing is the technology is there. We are looking to finance this with money from the European Commission. Also, there is a cooperation between Europe and India, but those things we can for sure look into to further showcase technology that is there. And I think always the first step is always building awareness, like was mentioned before. You want that, for example, I think in Rajasthan, you want to also have more renewable energy and build more awareness with citizens. I think that's always the first step, build that awareness. And I think webinars like this and social media and so on can help in this, because I really think if it's only a matter of money, I mean, okay, this is a big issue, but if you have a good idea and if technology is there, then I think for good ideas and good technology, you can always find money. So I think it's a matter of starting up a good pilot, showcasing that it makes a difference. And if you can convince that this makes a difference and it will make your business processes much easier and also COVID-proof, then I think there must be a way to find money for that. That's what I would say.
Sure. Thank you, Kelly, for highlighting the aspect on the source of money, the type of funding available, if any department requires it, if any DISCOM requires it. Sir, Ajitab ji, I would like to ask you about if we are talking about IT interventions, we have to deploy a lot of investment in IT or smart metering. So, do you see financing as a constraint? Like, is it a challenge or it's not a challenge at this moment?
See, I would again repeat that the only problem is that you need to have a holistic picture when you talk about technology interventions in the power sector. A. B. And when you talk about a holistic picture, like as Kelly was rightly mentioning, like smart grids. So, and particularly when you talk about more and more injection of the renewable energy, may it be solar, may it be wind, or may it be like biomass, but the actual problem is solar and wind, which come along with like a characteristic of variability. So now when you talk about higher injection of renewable energy into the grid, solar and wind, then the integration itself is a technical challenge for the transmission and distribution companies. So that requires a lot of investment, because it is said that the system cost, there is a term which is being used, the system cost of integration of renewable energy. Say like if I go for a bidding, like if SECI goes for a bidding for solar power for my state utility, and the discovered price is say like 2.7 rupees per unit. But the system level cost, when this renewable energy at a price of 2.7 rupees per unit, when it gets injected into the grid, maybe the STU, the state transmission utility network. So the actual cost which the whole power sector, the state power sector has to bear. So this actual cost is not 2.7 rupees per unit. The state utilities have to bear a cost of 3.7 rupees because of the intermittency and the variability which the renewable sector has. So now one thing is this, and then there are technology related issues, like you have to manage the reactive power, and then as what Mr. Chauhan has very rightly said, and the state of Rajasthan is also having more and more focus on solarization of the agriculture feeder, so that daytime load we can meet with the solar power, and it would further, reduce the peaks and troughs in the load curve of the state when we see it in a holistic scenario. So there are technology challenges but there are a lot of then ancillary services. When your percentage of injection of renewable power into the grid increases, then you have to think about more ancillary services, which have got major 8 to 9 different components. You have to simultaneously work upon them also. They also require finances, and they also require capital investment. Requires like capacity building and demand side response things, and then management of reactive power and a few other categories. Then those would be the highly technical issues. We can talk about them on another forum. Number 3 is but now there are different kind of financial products which are also coming. Like there are big business houses. Now they have got models where the state utilities do not have to make capital investment upfront. They can be on annuity basis. Like they would be charging on the service base, like for smart metering also. Either you make upfront investment or you make it in terms of per month unit of power used, like ESL, and there are other different kind of models. There are central government, public sector undertaking also, which have started working on those models. But even then, ultimately, it is a financial load which falls on the state power utility. So you have to see your balance sheet not as a snapshot of the current day, but also of the future times, because ultimately you have to serve either your debt, you have to service your debt, or you have to service the long-term contract in which you have entered into. Like even in the huge or big transmission network systems, which many state utilities are planning for, there are also like very big companies like which are working on tariff-based bidding system, even for the transmission system, not only for renewable tariff market discovery. So, these are few points regarding the financial constraints and the technology which you want to use. But ultimately, everything has to come out in a power sector. It is a very interesting sector. Ultimately, everything comes out from the pocket of the retail consumer.
Yes.
So the kind of regulation and the regulatory system which we have, ultimately everything boils down to per unit cost.
Yes.
So it may be 10 paisa increase, it may be 1 paisa increase, it may be 3 paisa increase. So we have to keep that also in mind. And how that escalation in tariff cost gets distributed among different category of consumers, that also we have to see. Because there are other aspects of cross subsidization and socialization related issues also.
Yes.
So that was all on it, on the point which you had raised. But I would like to add one point on what Kelly was saying, that there is a plan of making a kind of a city or a particular place conventional energy neutral. So when you talk about a small area, it is all right. But when you go for a holistic scenario, it is not possible, because like there is a concept called like optimal generation mix. So even in future, when you have best of the technologies in the renewable sector and you have got the systems which best of the efficiency working in place and tested and scaled up, but then even then you would be needing some percentage component of conventional power, maybe thermal power, unless you come out with huge, highly economical storage systems. But I think there is a study which has been done by Niti Aayog, and there is a report also which talks about this optimal generation mix system. Because like thermal, solar, wind, biomass, hydro, and maybe nuclear at some places that generation plant is situated or located at that particular place. So these all come with different kind of technical characteristics. Like solar varies, the solar power generation varies the whole day, 24 hours. Then it has got monthly variations also. Wind has got a lot of seasonality. So ultimately, that study says that there would be curtailment of renewable energy, whatever you may do. So there would be some particular percentage of curtailment which will happen to solar and wind. And there would be, then best case scenario analysis is there, worst case scenario analysis is there. So you have to always keep some minimum percentage base load thermal power generation capacity. So in a holistic scenario, thermal is going to be there for a number of years to come, unless we have some highly innovative storage systems in place. But the experts have said that even then you will need to have this thing, because the new investment, where it has to go is like another line of argument, and the existing investment, the existing thermal power plants, the standard capacity, how you have to deal with them, and whether it should be, placed at level 2 when compared to the new investment which is going to come in the renewable sector. So I think there are a lot of permutation combinations. So that we need to do, and accordingly the state has to design its generation plan for future. So that is what we have started in Rajasthan.
Yeah.
We are trying to make an attempt on this.
Yeah.
Can I give a reaction on this?
Yes.
So I'm for surely agreeing. Yes, you have to make a holistic view on your entire state. And I think, I don't know, even national wise, but okay, if we already start on state level, that's a very good idea. And what I'm, yes, of course, what I'm defending is, yes, move towards renewable energy, but also come to the right energy mix. So just you have your energy mix and you can look to go more into renewables, but at the same time, make that indeed everything interacts well with each other. And that, even also for renewable energy, yes, we have to investigate storage systems. And for now, for example, battery systems are expensive investments. But even there, pilots are going on to combine solar parks with battery systems. And there you can also then work with demand response. So this is in early stages. But I believe if you come with a right energy mix and where even non-renewables are part of, and you make the puzzle and look how to build awareness further, that slowly you can move forward to more renewables, but you have to really indeed make a good combination that indeed your base load will always be covered. Because yes, you have seasonality with solar and wind, and the storage systems for now are a bit expensive. But even there, if you can arrange the demand response in a smarter way, there is also technology available there to even overcome that issue.
May raise another point which I think emerges from what Mr. Ajitab has said and what Kelly has just mentioned. There is another question about the falling rate of the non-renewable energy, like in the bids by the state. The bids have been going lower and lower in last year, and some where they also become very unviable. And then also there were like some regulatory interventions being discussed, and there was a lot of discussion. So, what is the current situation? If I may ask Mr. Sunil to talk about it, Sunil Chawanji, that rates of the bidding for the non-renewable energy, wind energy, solar energy. Yeah.
Yeah, first of all, I should thank Ajitab sir again. He has put a light on system cost for integration. Certainly, when we are going ahead with renewable energy, it may be solar, it may be wind, or in any format. The system cost for integration, certainly this is a concern. And regarding these finances, certainly because this is not my domain, because I am looking after distribution. So regarding this financing of renewable energy and all, in my opinion, Ajitab sir is authority, because he has put light on renewable energy, then their finances, what are the constraints. Certainly, I would like to say, Maharashtra, certainly my company is around 80,000 crore company, but while putting upfront cost, because it will be slightly difficult. But if this cost is adjusted in billing, certainly new innovations can be carried out. Thank you.
Sure.
So yeah, I can, yeah.
Ajitab sir.
So see, yeah, I would like to start with a note that I think 2 days ago only there was a shaky bid for RTC, round the clock power supply, and that bid went to for rupees 2.9 per unit, and I think probably Renew has won that bid. I don't know, but that is for RTC Power, Renew Plus, RTC Power, and 400 megawatts and 2.9 rupees per unit, with a escalation of I think some 3% or so annual escalation for 15 years or something like that. But I don't know how Renew would do that, because as per our studies and the consultant we hired, so along with the storage, RTC Power, the cost turned out to be somewhere nothing less than 5 rupees per unit. But that bid has gone for 2.9 rupees. So I have asked my engineers just to go and dig for the details in MNRE, that how come it is 2.9 rupees, or whether it comes for some kind of financial support or back-end subsidy from Government of India or not. That I am still inquiring. So now, as you have rightly mentioned, that how this will happen. So the bids have gone as low as 2.44 rupees. Our Bhadla Solar Park in Western Rajasthan again. People call it Bhadla, or it is actually Bhadla Solar Park. That went to 2.44 rupees per unit, the lowest tariff so far. But I think they are surviving. So I keep on asking the investors that how this is happening. So there are 2-3 reasons which they give, particularly in the solar sector. Number one is that the kind of supply chain of the capital goods which has got created in China. So their cost of production is very less. Maybe from the support of the local government there, or maybe because the manner in which they have streamlined their production of all components and parts, and maybe at the scale or the volumes at which they are working. So that cost has been coming down. I don't know about the scenario in last 5-6 months, but for last many years that cost was coming down. A. B. What the investors tell is that they have been very successfully able to rope in the debts, the borrowings at very low interest rate, and lot of foreign funding is also coming. Like I have heard that even the pension funds are investing into the renewable sector in India through these investors and solar power developers. So that is coming at a very low rate. So if you go to Indian banks or the lenders, then you get the loan maybe sometimes at 10 to 11%, but they are fetching these borrowings maybe sometimes at 1 to 2% at that foreign destination. But when it comes back with hedging and other things, and so it may perhaps become 5 or 6% at the most. So the cost is coming down because of that also. Third, the manner in which the ministry, MNRE and SECI in particular, has come out with a kind of these 2 levels of agreements, the PSAs and PPAs, the power supply agreement and the power purchase agreement. So these developers have got a confidence developed among themselves that ultimately I am going to get my payments from SECI, which is a Government of India corporation, and which till now used to have a good corpus of money. So, and I will not have to run pillar to post to the state discoms, the state utilities, which are always cash crunch. That has also given a good confidence to the solar power developers. And maybe the another reason can be the technology itself.
Yes.
The technology itself is getting developed at a very high pace. Now, in terms of the panels which are coming, the another thing is that the capital invest even in land has also come down. There was a time when we started in Rajasthan, roughly around 3 hectares of land was needed for 1 megawatt of solar panel installation. Now it is only 2 hectares. So it has come down from 3 hectares to 2 hectares. So that capital cost of investment has also come down. Then per megawatt generation has also improved. And now we are talking about entirely different kind of panels which are being researched upon and which would be coming in another period of maybe 4-5 years. And someone was telling me that ultimately we will forget about these solar panels. So I was not convinced about that solar power developer, but he told me that solar panels are talk of only at the most 5 to 7 years. So I couldn't discuss in detail with him, but the technology is evolving very fast, which is reducing the capital cost. And certainly the best thing is that it comes at zero variable cost. So the renewable power, it comes at zero variable cost. Only capex is there. They get the priority status in terms of must-run status. They are at the highest level with zero curtailment. Curtailment comes because of other management-related issues. So as far as thermal power plants are concerned, they are very well placed. Their power would be purchased by the state power distribution companies. So there is a surety of business also. There is surety of business operations for a period as long as sometimes 25 years or 30 years. So it gives a good confidence. So ultimately what happens is that the investor is ready to give a cut out of his return on equity. So he will say that I will not earn 10%, but there is surety of earning 7%. So he will also cut down his margin of profit ultimately because he has also to make profit out of it. So that is why there are a number of things which have made renewable so attractive even for the investors. The generation part. So generation part is very much settled by now in India. Like there are a lot of investors coming, there are a lot of new people coming, technology is settled, the state policies are settled. There are few glitches always, But people know that this is what I have to do, then I have to forget about my investment for the coming 25 years. Provided the regulator takes the view and the state governments and the government of India gives equal honor to the directions or the regulations issued by the state or central regulators. I think this is what my experience is about.
Yeah.
it.
Sure.
Can I add one thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Tell me, please.
So this is a very beautiful example. Renew Power is our customer, and we guide them in the digitalization journey. And they are using our Synaptic software in handling all their assets. So I'm not sure if there is a connection, but they are using our technology in having the dashboards, in managing the processes internally. Probably this also optimizes processes and gives confidence to investors that all the processes are digitized, that everything can be monitored all the time, and advanced algorithms are there to do forecasting. So I'm not sure if there is a connection, but it could be, and I just wanted to mention this.
But I think they will be having tough time at 2.9 rupees per unit RTC. They will be having tough time.
So, Sunilji, you have any points to make about this bidding rates and people quoting very low to get the business? Any?
Because renewable energy, this is a competitive sector. Many domestic as well as foreign funding, they are about to come. So due to this competitive sector, and secondly, there is a surety of business because government and electricity company, they are buying the power. So certainly due to competition, the rates are going down. This is my perception.
Okay, great. There is a question asked by one of the audiences that major challenges in the power sector during the COVID-19 pandemic. I think you have answered it anyway, but you want to add something, Kelly? What you are seeing globally, like how has this pandemic impacted the power sector outside India also? Like, what is the situation?
Yeah. So right now I'm in Belgium, and for example, in Belgium as well, we see, for example, that the building speed of solar parks, for example, is going down a bit because a lot of material comes from China. So the supply chain is a little bit disturbed. So it goes at a lower speed to build up the solar parks. So that is what we are observing. And indeed, the same as in India, the demand in electricity went down as well because also almost the entire of Europe has been under lockdown. Now slowly Europe is recovering. We're coming slowly out of the lockdown, and the industry is recovering. So the demand in electricity will pick up again. But also here, the same as in India was there. I think Europe, flattened the curve already, so we passed the peak. But it has very big economic impact. Industry has to restart, and yes, also in renewables, we observe a slowdown in the building. But there is a slowdown, but there is also an awareness that if you create or produce your own electricity, that awareness is rising, that renewables is the way to go.
Sure.
So also with the Green Deal in Europe, so that awareness is rising due to the COVID.
Sure. I have a question to Mr. Ajitab and Mr. Sunil Chauhan. The question is regarding that Indian discoms are facing losses year after year. and the Ministry of Power has been giving support in various kind of schemes year after year, like new schemes are being created. But there's still the situation is not yet improving as much it should have. So, what are your views on like how to address this situation? Ajitam Sharma sir.
Okay, like I think can Chauhan ji take this question first, like because he's
Yes.
MD of a
Yes.
distribution
Yes, sir.
company.
Yes, sir.
So yeah, then I'll respond.
Um, what would if we see the picture of my region right now, my areas are to the tune of 15,000 crore, and company as such the areas are 46,000 crore. See, basically this recovery part, 2-3 things we should do. The concept of prepaid metering, like this mobile card or prepaid card. If this is introduced in this power sector, certainly it will help. Secondly, you have rightly said, government is helping in a big way through Deen Dayal Upadhyay, then through IPDS, through HVDS. There are many schemes for infrastructure development. But for this hooking, to avoid the theft, this then bunch cabling, means insulated cabling, whereby we may stop hooking. If these 2-3 new innovations are carried out, certainly the theft will go down. And secondly, Kelly has rightly said, awareness is the biggest tool which is available, awareness and sensitization. Secondly, guarantee to the consumers you will get 24/7 electricity supply. Certainly it is happening in Maharashtra. But and again, what we are trying, sir, Ajitab sir, in Maharashtra, what we are doing, the areas where there is a more theft, we are taking out the meters of the consumers and we are putting it on electricity poles, 50 meters, 100 meters in a box. Certainly, it has stopped the theft in a big way, and recovery has been boosted. Then bunch cabling also, this is seems to be a good way out. And prepaid meters, we are just trying. This is in initial stages. With this, in some of the areas where there is more theft, it can be brought down. Secondly, one more concern in my state is about public water works, public pipe water supply schemes and street light. This is again an area of concern because public water works, they are managed by local self governments. It may be Gram Panchayat, Jilla Parishads, or urban local bodies like municipal corporation. Recovery in municipal corporation is good, but municipal council, certainly it is again an area of concern. And street light, due to the varying policy of the government, earlier in my state, what was happening, government was subsidizing street light bill to the tune of 50%, but now they have stopped. So, and in COVID period also, villagers, they are coming forward, yeah, हमारे गांव में light तो होनी चाहिए, we should get the light, street light. So, this is again an area of concern for recovery, and this is the biggest challenge.
Sure.
Okay.
Ajitam sir.
So yeah. So I think Chauhan ji has explained it very well. I have few points which I would like to make. See, the problem actually lies with the discoms in terms of maintaining and managing their balance sheets and maintaining proper cash flows, particularly for managing their operations as per requirement. So it is the discom which is the key point where everything revolves around. But unfortunately, in last few years, what has happened is that the problem which was with the discoms, it has got entered to the transmission companies and to the very great extent to the generation companies.
Yes.
Otherwise, generation companies were working properly. They financially also they were working very prudently and robustly, and the problem was not lying with the generation companies. But particularly when I talk about my state, now even the generation companies have gone into red. And now the generation companies have also started making borrowings from the market on government guarantees and other things, and they have also started mortgaging their assets like land and plants and equipments and other things. So now even the generation component of power sector is also in a big problem. As Mr. Chauhan has talked about the distribution sector, it is already in a lot of problem. But the major crisis which lies in near future is that even for working capital, because now we have already touched that limit of Uday parameter, that is only to the extent of 25% of working capital borrowings were allowed. So we have almost touched that. So now we are going to land up in a situation where the distribution companies would not be even in a position to take borrowings from the markets to maintain their business operations. Though we have requested MOP to relax this limit of 25% and extend it to 45% or 40%, particularly in the current COVID scenario. But I don't think it has happened thus far. But that will give a great breather to the distribution companies. And now coming to the point of revival of the distribution companies. The revival in terms of the current accumulated losses which the distribution companies have, the borrowing limit which they have, the financial support which the state governments can provide, because there is a limit to that also. Even considering all these aspects and parameters, the total funds finances required by the distribution companies to keep on servicing their debt and to maintain their business operations would be very difficult. It would be very difficult. So ultimately, what needs to be done is that all the stakeholders, particularly the lenders, will have to come along with the state power utilities and the MOP. Lenders will have to sit along with the power utilities, and Government of India will have to sit, and they would have to come out with a different kind of financial restructuring plan. Otherwise, the quantum and volume of the debts and the accumulated losses which these power companies are facing, it would be, if not impossible, but it would be very difficult. It would in a way be next to impossible for the distribution utilities to come out of the red balance sheet situation. So now so the lenders will have to take little bit of haircut. The distribution companies will have to also come out with kind of basic financial and operational parameter improvements, something like Uday, or something maybe more stricter than Uday, or something which is more broad based in terms of the reforms which the distribution companies will have to take. So that will have to happen again. That is what my whole understanding is. Otherwise, even if we reduce our the AT&C losses, which say if like currently is in 20% in some state or 22%, even if you bring them down to 11 or 12%, oh fine. Even if you are able to get your full subsidy amount from the state government, even if you are in a position to make your revenue collection efficiency to the tune of 98%, even then your problem will not get resolved. That is what the scenario, at least in the Rajasthan distribution sector, is. Even then, because the loan burden is so much that the debt servicing fund requirement has itself become very huge. So that has to come, and then maybe in a period of another 5 to 7 years, we'll have to be optimistic. We cannot say that nothing happened in Uday and some of the states were not able to take full benefit of Uday because of n number of reasons. But ultimately, we have to come out with something like that only. Otherwise, what will happen is that the major part of the generation sector would also get into deep trouble. So we have to find some solution to these financial issues.
Sure. There is a question that someone has asked here, that the model adopted by Delhi, like Delhi government, involve the private sector.
Tata Power is doing it.
Yes, Tata and Reliance. So so like, is it a viable option to look at private participation?
So we have attempted that model. So there are different models in that also. So like MOP was talking about separation of carriage and content thing. Like even in the distribution sector, then you further bifurcate into two different components. One is the buyer business and another one is the supply business. So like distribution company becomes the owner of the distribution capital infrastructure which is available. So even if we do not go to the concept of separation of carriage and content, which is there in some of the European countries and has been successfully implemented also. and for a long period of time by now. But there are certain issues in separation of carriage and content in India, particularly considering the agriculture sector and other things. But we have around 5 to 7 major cities on different kind of franchisee models.
Okay.
So that franchisee, I hope you are talking about the franchisee model.
Yes.
So Delhi has been able to do it very successfully because it is a kind of urban agglomerate only.
Yes.
But like as what Mr. Chauhan was saying, to have a franchisee model in ag connections, in agriculture connections, so it is very difficult to implement that. So there are a number of issues in that also. So the most of the private partners which are eager to come under the franchisee model are in urban areas where it is easy to monitor and manage the supply of power, do the energy audit, like install the smart meters and bring down the AT&C losses, high quality 24/7 power supply. Okay, so there are a lot of interventions which you can do. You can curtail down your human resource also, so that you cut down your HR expenses also. In a small urban agglomerates, you can always do it. And in Rajasthan, I think out of these 5-7 places, we have been able to reasonably do well, at least at 2 different locations.
Okay.
So we can think of replicating that also, but I think the new amendment in the Electricity Act, which has been proposed by Government of India, I have not read the latest draft which has been floated by them, but I think this was coming in a formal shape in the new amended provisions of the Electricity Act. So if it comes, then it will be a great help to the state power companies, because currently what is happening is that each state or each distribution company is testing on different kind of models. But as number of states now have tested the franchisee model, there is a lot of learning which is available in the market. And MOP, after doing the detailed study, I think they have already done. So if they come out with a good model, certainly giving flexibility to the state distribution companies, I think it will be a good thing for future. But then the accumulated losses and the debt and the loan burden which the distribution companies already have, you have to take care of that. Otherwise, you will get in a kind of very serious debt trap.
Yes. May I request Sunil Chauhan to please answer the question. There is an audience who has asked you a question, if you can see on your screen also, that what are the challenges for MSE DCL for implementation of prepaid meters? And there is another question related is that the cost of prepaid meters are higher. Who is going to pay that? And also there is a third question, like inside it, that MSE DCL has minus 24% of transmission and distribution losses, while private operators in Bhiwandi and Nagpur did so well that AT&C losses came down to minus 12%. Why not to have more PPPs in DF?
Very good question. First of all, I would like to put light on these private operators operating in Bhiwandi. Bhiwandi, we have tried this model, franchisee model, for collection of the electricity tariff to private operator, that is the Torrent company. So this was a successful model. We have tried to replicate this model in Aurangabad, but we could not do it. So recently I have been joined before only 1 month. So definitely we'll try and we'll like to study what are the lacunae, why they fail to work out in Aurangabad. But in Bhiwandi, this Torrent company, they did it very successfully. Collection of revenue has been boosted. Certainly, there is one more issue raised about the prepaid meter. Certainly, prepaid meter, it has a initial capital cost is more, but so there are 2 options. One is upfront payment by company, or if this is adjusted in billing, some of the cost. So certainly this prepaid metering, and this we are trying only in some of the parts. We are not going ahead in a blanket format prepaid metering. We have tried the prepaid metering in government quarters first. This is just I am giving an example, because what is happening, government quarter, after 1 year or 2 years, the employee used to get changed, and what is the balance amount who to pay. This was a big question. So we took it to the prepaid meter. It is one of the alternative, and it has worked in a nice way. So now we are trying to replicate in the areas where there is a theft is more, or where the citizens are. So in specialized areas, we'll be using this prepaid metering. And third question is asked about the losses. Certainly, these losses are due to the certainly it can be minimized by system improvement. As I have rightly said, in Maharashtra we have started AG mapping, mapping of AG assets. While mapping these assets, we have started from substation to feeder to DTC, and DTC to consumer. In all these sections, what type of system improvements are necessary? What type of system improvements are to be carried out? How much capital investment company can make? What type of investment we can take from outside? With this investment, these losses can be brought down. As the question they are saying, it is more than 20%. It can be brought down. Thank you.
Yep. There is a question for Ajitab Sharma ji. Can we have you on the screen, please, Ajitab ji? I can see him right now. Before I go to him, may I ask Kelly, you have any views about reduction of losses in this discoms, and how what are the interventions needed in this area? You have any points or suggestions, views?
Well, I must say that transmission losses, that's not my key expertise, but we will do a pilot on that to look to optimize grids, and we have some expertise in Europe on that as well. And it all comes down to monitoring where everything is going, identify the losses, and try to find the causes of the losses, and then from there try to find a solution.
Ajitab ji, yes, I think we have him back on the screen.
I don't know.
Yeah, okay, great. Sir, there is a question specifically for Rajasthan solar parks, and someone has asked that there have been a lot of challenges in past many years in implementing solar parks by the private sector. So, what initiative government is taking to accelerate the process? And there is a related so and there is a related question on that average cost of supply has been a lot of increasing, and businesses are unviable. And so, what is the government strategy to retain the PPP business? So, yeah, I start.
So first, I will answer the challenges. So
Yes,
I
sir.
think the number one challenge was related regarding the procuring of land, right? So now see, one is the allotment of government land. So yesterday only in our board meeting we have cleared number of projects. So I think they were worth more than 4,000 megawatts. So we have given the recommendation for allotment of government land for those projects. So like NTPC was there, and there were other few private developers, and there were issues which were pending, like the developer or the investor had bought different pieces of land, and there were few chunks of government land which were lying in between the private land which was purchased by the developer. So like in those areas we have made recommendation for allotment of those intermittent pockets of government lands also. One. Two, there are certain issues which are going on in the field in our 2-3 border districts regarding the ease with which the developers can roll down their projects. They can start setting up of their projects. So they are sometimes related to like the land aggregator thing which is going on.
Hmm.
Like there are a few different layers which have come up, but now it cuts both ways. In many cases, the developers themselves have started hiring the services of
Hmm.
those local land aggregators.
Hmm.
So they move around, they survey the land, they
Hmm.
identify the pockets of land, they check the viability of the private land, then they get in touch and then negotiate with the farmers who are the owners of the land, and
Hmm.
then make a huge chunk, and then they go back to the developer, and then finally they strike
Hmm.
a deal.
Hmm.
So there are certain issues related to them also. But
Hmm.
now, and then there is another set of problems which is being faced is the interference of the local people.
Hmm.
There had been certain occasions where there had been small law and order problems also, and the
Hmm.
people were not allowing the investors to enter into the land. So of
Okay.
late, the biggest decision which has been taken by the state
Hmm.
government is that
Hmm.
to set up an entirely dedicated police station
Okay.
only for the help and assistance of the
Okay.
solar power developers.
Okay.
And we are setting the police chowkis also at 3 different places
Okay.
where the majority of these renewable energy projects are coming. And
Hmm.
there, the officers there would be well briefed, they would be well trained, they would be having clear directions in terms of the assistance and help at the first call they have to provide to the
Hmm.
solar power developers.
Okay.
So these are the things. So they, as the area develops and the investment comes, there are a
Hmm.
number of peripheral issues which would always crop up. But I
Hmm.
think the state of Rajasthan is seized of all these issues, and we are tackling with these problems and issues in the right earnest to the best, in a best possible manner. In terms of the rising cost, I think the question was pointed towards the clause in our renewable energy policy where there is a provision for the developer to deposit development charge, which currently is, like, initially it was 1 lakh rupees per megawatt per year after the commencement of the project, once the COD is made for the plant life period. So if the PPA is for 25 years, then for each megawatt for 1 year, each year, the developer will have to now pay 2 lakhs. But see, if even this amount, it has been calculated very objectively. This figure has not come out of the blues. So what we have done is that we have actually calculated the higher solar insolation in the western Rajasthan, like in Bikaner, Jaisalmer, Bardmer, and part of Jodhpur district. It has got the best solar insolation. So how much higher the solar insolation is, so how much better capacity utilization factor, or PLF or CUF, which you say, the investor or the solar power developer would be able to get if he sets up his plant in western Rajasthan. So that also we have calculated. And after that only, and then in terms of the power tariff, vis-a-vis, if the developer goes to make that investment in other states, like if he goes to UP or MP or Gujarat, because our ultimate idea for the rolling out of the new policy is to attract investment in Rajasthan.
Hmm.
So even then, making investment in Rajasthan in solar sector
Hmm. Hmm.
is cheaper for the investor. Their margins have certainly come down little bit. So ultimately, it is the price discovery mechanism which works out.
Hmm.
And I think there are already, what I think, roughly more than 15,000 megawatts which are already on the annual. Bids have been won by the developers. And as I have told that yesterday only, I
Hmm.
approved for around 4,000 megawatts. And another 4,000 megawatts I would be approving in my next meeting of the board, which I am planning to schedule after another 14-15 days. So things are not so bad, but certainly the state has taken a part of the, you may call, profit which the developer was making, to be very
Hmm.
frank about it. Because now see, we have to also look after our local area development,
Hmm.
because the western part of Rajasthan, which is desert, now see, there are lignite based thermal power plant. We have them in Bardmer. the Jindal power plant. So thermal power is there. One, two, wind power was already there. Solar power is already there. Now we have good oil deposits being found. So Kane Energy is working there. So we have oil, we have got lignite, we have got renewable, and that is our most popular tourism destination. You might have heard about the Desert Festival Jaisalmer. So it is our most popular tourism destination. So it has got Desert National Park also. You might have heard about GIB, so Great Indian Bustard. So now, which is almost an extinct species, bird species, which is there. So there are a number of things and activities which are going on in the desert now. It is our one of the major revenue resource. So if we start exploiting, now land as desert has become a resource. So the government also then wants to make some money out of it, gain some financial resources for local area development. Otherwise, it becomes very difficult for me or for the state government, for that matter, to go there and convince people that the investors or developers, they are swarming in such huge numbers in that area. They are coming from outside and making investment. So we have to convince them also. Then we say that we'll be doing such and such activities and we'll be developing this area, maybe new schools or other CSR activities or health facilities. And all the more this development fund on which the point has been made out by the audience, this is ultimately going to the major portion of this would be going to the state power utilities. As what I have said, and Mr. Chauhan also showed his agreement on it, that there is a system level cost, which is at least 1 rupees per unit, what the studies say. So you have won the bid at 2.7 rupees per unit. You would inject it at 2.7 rupees per unit. But ultimately, when my transmission utility and my distribution utility deals with it, or the state load dispatch center tries to find a way out of the particular characteristic of the renewable being variable and seasonal, the intermittency of the renewable power. So I have to invest 1 rupee from my side per unit. So from where that investment would be coming? So it comes in form of the levy of development charge. So I'll be using that amount to cater to the issues related to renewable power integration into the grid, making the grid, like you call, more flexible, or making the grid smart in terms of its management.
Sure.
So that money has to come from somewhere.
Yes.
Yeah. Could I just begin with some remark? Yeah.
Yes.
So you made remark that in the west of Rajasthan, it was better to do the installations because of the irradiation, I guess. You have better solar irradiation.
Solar insolation.
Excuse me?
Solar insolation. So I have to come out with the evacuation facilities also. Apart from the PGCIL thing, that is the CTU, we have to upgrade the STU also, the state transmission utility. So I have to make investment in that also. I have to create sufficient evacuation facilities. So for that also I am needing a lot of money. So this 1 rupee per unit involves, it includes everything. So it has to come from somewhere then.
Yeah,
so it comes in the form of levy in the name of development charge on the developer.
Well, the point that I wanted to make, if developers put solar parks, then it's very important that they get the best performance out of their solar parks, so that cleaning schedules and so on, that there is a lot of attention to good operations and maintenance, because you can put solar parks, but I think the intention is that you go to the best PR that is possible, and to have good performance of solar parks, you really need to have, a good operations and maintenance. That again, if you monitor the performance, you can really act quickly and like that go to the best performance that is possible. So I guess if developers get the best out of the solar park, that is also a good start.
Yeah, right. So I think they have got different kind of systems for cleaning of solar panels, and they have got things in place. But a lot of innovation, like a lot of technology intervention is needed in that also, because desert, it has got no water, or it doesn't have water of that extent of volume to clean the solar panels on regular basis. So I think some of the developers are using those air cleaner also. So there is a gush of air and it cleans to the extent possible the solar panels. So there is need of a better technology for that purpose also.
Yeah, but I think it's really very important, if we put solar parks, that we put solar parks that get the best performance, and that attention is paid to that as well. It has a lifetime of 25 years, and you should get the best out of those solar panels.
The highest UF possible, yeah.
Yeah. And then a good maintenance is very important for sure in desert areas where soiling will be a big issue.
Okay.
Sir, let me ask a question to Sunil ji and Ajtab ji. There are like question raised by some of the audience that there are models of the, like I discussed about the Delhi model of the private operators. Like there are models of the power discom in Calcutta, there is Delhi, there is perhaps a few other cities in India, and there like efficiency has been higher, so the loss to the government is lower. So is it a good option for the state governments to seriously look at PPP in this discom and other sectors of the energy? So may I request Sunil ji to talk about?
In my earlier debate, I have already told we have tried one model in Bhiwandi.
Yes.
This was a successful model. We tried to replicate it in Aurangabad, but we could not. But it will be too early for me because I have just taken over in Aurangabad just for 1 month. But certainly PPPs in power sector, definitely it will work because it has a good surety of business, then assured return. So many investors, they will come forward. And day by day, every day, the need for electricity, it is going on. Because in every part of our life, we are using electricity. So PPP in power sector, certainly they will work with some good protocol.
Sure. Ajtab ji, your we'll be ending it right now in a minute. So like it's almost the concluding remarks of the session. We are concluding.
I have a very small point to make in this regard what Mr. Chauhan has said, that it certainly can work out well because all government systems and all the state utilities have the upsides and downsides in terms of the decisions they make and in terms of the operational and functional efficiency. But the point is that the major reason for success of these franchise systems and PPP models was that the private partner was very successfully able to do the energy auditing thing. So they were excellent in doing energy audit. They were able to perfectly index all their infrastructure, where the poles are, where the smart meters are, where the lines are going, and at different voltage levels. They were able to do the energy accounting. How much energy is coming, where the energy is going, who is paying, who is not paying, which consumer is not paying regularly, what kind of benefits or incentives are to be given to which category of consumers, what are to be the mode of the system of collection, improving the collection efficiencies. So they used IT to its best for doing this thing. So once you are able to do the energy accounting and auditing to the perfect level, once you are able to do proper indexing of your your distribution infrastructure, maybe on the GIS, if you are able to install smart meters, and like what Chauhan ji is saying, that if you are able to install prepaid meters, there are some counter arguments for prepaid meters also. But if you are able to do it in urban areas, then it improves your collection efficiency like anything. So if you are able to do that, they would be profitable by simply reducing that the AT&C loss band. If it is like 17% before you give the handover the area to the franchisee, and if they bring that 17 to 13%, then it would be a net profit for them. So now, but these models are also being questioned. Because this AT&C loss, like if it was 17% before the area was handed over to the private partner. How actually that was being calculated?
Okay.
I think Chauhanji is agreeing with me.
Okay.
Actually, because he understands what happens, because he knows
Yeah.
what happens in the field. This 17%, no one knows. It might have been 15% or it might have been 20%. It is 17% in the books. So when you go for actual energy auditing, so the right way is to select a private partner after having these energy audit and energy accounting parameters done on your own to the best extent possible. First, hire a consultant. Let him do all this exercise. Let him do the energy accounting, energy audit. Let him come out with the best possible figure of AT&C losses, which is there in that area. And then you float the bid to select
Sure.
the private partner. Then
Yes.
see what happens.
Yes,
So
I
there are a
get it.
number of issues in these things. But certainly involving or inviting a private partner brings in lot of efficiency in performance and functioning, brings in capital also. Like if we are financially constrained, so he will make capital investment also, which you don't have to make.
Yes.
So he'll certainly make some money out of it. He'll make his profit out of it. But the whole idea is that ultimately the government and public should not be the loser in this whole game.
Yes. Yes.
We
So
should be knowing that what we are offering the private partner.
exactly. So with this, I want to thank all our eminent speakers here, Ajitav Sharma ji, Kelly, and Sunil Chauhan ji, for joining us, and our audience who has joined us. I think we had an amazing discussion, and we are honored to have you all three here. Thank you so much.